right at the
Yeah.
beginning.
No, I'm really curious about Dying Light 2 because I also haven't played the first game, but there's a lot of buzz through the hallways
A lot of
about this game.
Yeah,
buzz.
this
And
it's
Buzz,
you
buzz,
so
buzz,
here's the thing,
buzz.
like a lot of the things that we go to are in meeting rooms upstairs. Like a lot of my time this year has been upstairs in these meeting rooms. It's fairly quiet. There's not a whole lot of crowds up there. But you go above West Hall and it's jammed because Cyberpunk there and Dying Light 2 is there, and the whole show there are just people just like waiting to get in. Like they are making sure they're showing up on time for these things.
yeah. I just first of all, Techland shout out. They had coffee, which was my
Oh,
first
thank
my
God.
first appointment of the day. And I thought about getting in that Starbucks line, but I'm like, I just don't want to chance it. I don't
Yeah.
know how long the media line's going to be. I'm getting here much earlier than I did the day before, so I finally get there and I'm ready to go. And I'm scared because it's like the dark theater, showing. And I'm like, oh no, don't put me in a dark room. I know I'll pass out. So thank you, Techland. A little history with me in this franchise. Dead Island 1, I devoured that game, man. I love Dead Island 1. Played all the DLC and it was interesting because it's one of those games that has warts. It's swimmings and sevens might even be gracious. It's just not. It's a game from a dev that has a lot of good ideas, but this could be a more. And I hesitate to use the word polish because I think sometimes devs are just we almost kind of want to work on a new project now. Let's just get this thing out. It had so much promise when I played that first game. And Dying Light kind of had the same vibe. Obviously, the movement was so much better. The way the world was changing was so much better. The combat felt so good, but that world just looked gross to me. Like the character models looked gross. I didn't get any sort of connection. I was connected to the story a little bit, but when I was talking to a person, it was just okay. It just felt so gamey and there was just some stuff with horizons and the ocean and weird textures. It just kind of had a funk to it that again, I still played Dying Light straight to the credits. Loved it, but I just had some issues with it technically. And I think that's one of the best compliments I can give Dying Light 2 is when saw it last year and it looked fine, but when they walked out into the open area, I was like, oh, this looks pretty. And a lot of the trailers we've seen, it's ash and brown and orange and everyone smells bad and we're all diseased and the water's run out and I'm like, okay, that I sense the desperation in that. That's certainly a world I want to improve or make worse depending on the decisions that you make and how you want to shape that world. But from what I saw, I was like, okay, now we got some green. Now we got the sun is definitely playing against a lot of stuff. Got some really complex, really just elaborate buildings and interiors. A lot of jumping from one skyscraper to another and just fingernails right on the windowsill when we land. And so that felt really good. I was also impressed this year because they had a great showing last year, and it was almost the same exact type of presentation in the sense of went into a theater, they talked a little bit beforehand, watched the demo that was played live both last year and this year, and then afterwards took questions, which is actually something I would have loved after Cyberpunk. Just give me 10 minutes just to throw one question at you.
But even some of the people on their team are like, yeah, this demo's too long. We keep running over time.
Right. And so they did that again this year, and I'm thinking man, if it even has the same format, I'm curious how this demo is going to change. And immediately they're hitting notes that I was like, cool. Not only is that stuff you didn't cover last year, but this stuff very much speaks to me. Begin the demo, and we are in their hangout. We're in
safe house.
We're in their bar.
Hell yeah!
And so we go out, and there's a gal singing a song that is a popular song now, but it was a very much just it's the apocalypse. Let's get up on the mic and sing it the best you can version. And what the people that are partying don't know is that the water's going to get shut down the next day, and they're their whole part of town. I think there's 7 separate districts. The district that they're in is not going to have water, and the person who runs the district, Frank, knows this, and this. But the issue is the guy who controls the water, supposedly. Is in his own, separate district, very militant, very huge high walls in his settlement, tough guy to negotiate with. But Frank's we have to. It's not really negotiable whether we're going to have water or not. And then you had a couple of the people on their team that are I do not trust this guy. We're not going to meet with this guy. Screw this guy. We should just attack them and just try to take over their base. And he's like, it might come to that, but let's just talk to He invited us over. Let's just talk to him. And so not only did I dig just this vibe of this this bar, and so you're going in and people are talking, they're dancing. You go upstairs, and this one guy's upset because he knows the water's going to get shut down. Not Frank, but this other character, and he's like on a balcony area, like on a couch in the corner, just kind of like looking at everybody. And I was like, I dig it. I dig this place. This is like a neat place to go back to. Again, it was like what I was missing from these trailers of just like bleak, and I'm like, it's nice to get a little bit of comfort. A feeling that like there is something worth fighting for. There is a lifestyle that some of these people still do enjoy. Kind of like in Division, where when you go into those settlements, you see kids playing, and you're like, okay, like there is a quality of life that we can maybe get back to someday if we can all just get along. And so we have this task in front of us that what are we going to do about this water situation in relationship to this potential enemy that we have? And so he's going to come over and negotiate with us. While that's happening, Frank gets shot. You don't see this happening because you're right in the middle of a cutscene, but then you're up above. Oh crap, got to go help Frank. Perfect opportunity to do the air dive down, take out one guy. So much dismemberment, so much blood, like constant crowd, like
feel the kill,
a constant crowd, like ooh, just that noise consistently, again and again, just like chopping heads off, chopping legs off, chopping arms off.
Excellent.
And yeah,
Excellent.
I like what I hear.
Yeah.
And so Frank gets shot. With the character who was upstairs on the balcony is like taking care of Frank, and he's like, and then they pop up a decision. And there was actually a lot of decisions in this game where you could choose where to direct things. And the thing that was interesting about these decisions, because I think it's interesting with a lot of games, something like an action game like Assassin's Creed or like shooters are trying to implement more decision making. And I think it can kind of be dangerous because people have a lot of expectations, regardless of how you sell it at all. Like you could say like, again and again and again, this is not going to change the ending. And I think people still will kind of expect that or get to end credits and be like, well, that didn't really influence anything. I feel like the road would have ended there anyway. This feels a little different because it feels like this is going to affect right now. Like you are going to feel the consequences immediately for this decision. Like you're going to know what you are leaving behind and know like, and it was always a tough call. Like there was never really an easy decision. One being the guys that you were meeting with take off in a van, and there's Frank bleeding, and it's like, did you want to stay with Frank, and help out, or do you want to go get that van? Because
What would you have done, Jones?
was
Frank a nice guy?
I mean, yeah, Frank's a nice guy, but I mean, first of all, I just met him 3 seconds ago in the demo, so if I was playing it, I probably would have left him. But also, again, it's the greater good. We got to get that water running because sucks that Frank is shot, but we got 80 people back in that bar that are not going to be able to drink tomorrow morning.
Frank didn't want them to have water because they were running out, so he's trying to ration it.
He was the one that's like, we need to negotiate with them. So he's the one who met with them.
Got it.
And then gets shot, but I didn't see what happened. And so we take off after this van. And this was tricky because he followed a very specific path that had certain sequences in this chase to get to this van that felt a little bit choreographed, that felt like, well, okay, that didn't just happen. Like, that's what you set up for this demo. And they did ask somebody, I was prepared to ask this question, but somebody beat me to it with, they were like, could I just follow the road or could I just like hop over cars to try to get to it? And they're like, yeah. They're like, we went to, because there was a point where he like climbs up on top of the building and then scans and like, oh, there's the truck. And it's like, what if I didn't know where the truck was? Like, what if I didn't go to a top of a building to try to find it? Like, there was a lot of circumstantial stuff where I'm like, I'm curious how many different ways this can play out. So we just lots of parkour trying to go after this thing. Almost everything that they showed, you can see in the gameplay trailers that they showed off. One of my favorite things, got a big reaction, was if a zombie's near a window, you can shove it out the window and land on it, so you can like break your fall when you're going down.
Nice.
Breath of the Wild parasail, jumped off a skyscraper one time and and had like the little ropes going down and then like dropped that at a rooftop. I don't know if you just have that forever or if that has a cooldown or specifically, but that got another like nice reaction from the crowd. But just kind of traditional if you've played this before, where he could have gotten away from a lot of the zombie attacks, but like it's kind of fun as he's running through an area just to like smack something and decapitate a guy. There was one point where while he clearly was aiming for the window, and like when he glided in, he went right through the window and then immediately decapitated like the first zombie in front of him. So it was neat, and you can do that, but like very obvious the guy playing knows that the zombie's going to be exactly there like, in this demo. And there was one part which, again, I wonder if you can avoid, and it was he was just kind of scrambling all over the place, and I'm like, how do you know? You just lost the van. Like, how do you know where you're going? Like, I would be very frustrated with like, I think I just failed the mission because I lost this thing.
Was their HUD turned off?
I didn't notice a lot of HUD actually, to be honest. But he crash through the floor. And so he's running along just regular planks and then falls through the floor right in the middle of just like a pitch black room with tons of zombie types all over the place.
Awesome.
And so he's like, and like trying to scramble. And two things that he used to get out of it. One was just a general UV light, which was interesting because it would like stun them.
Yep.
But like if you're in a room and there's surrounding you, like you can't, like you can't. And so he used it one time when he was in a hallway and he had to get to a staircase and it was just like stop. And then he was able to run past it. And then at one point, you can see this also in the trailer, he climbs up a ladder and a zombie grabs his leg and pulls him off of the ladder.
Oh.
And then when he gets up, he pulled out like a flashlight, basically. It's kind of like a black light bomb. It was just like a big glowing thing in his hand that he pulled out, and then they all moved away. But that only fizzled out after like 5 or 6 seconds. So he pulled that out, dropped it, and then got back on the ladder. And then very Mission Impossible style, finally got back into the one building and the van's right there. And so the music's building up as he's running, jumps onto the van. There's a archer there that you beat up when he gets on the van, and then climbs into the car and holds a knife to the driver's throat. And again, you have an option: kill this guy, take over the car, or threaten the guy and tell him to go and get into the into this complex.
Is it a normal looking car or like a buggy, like in the
So a yellow
Following?
van. It's like a DHL van,
Okay.
basically. And I think it had like a little modded hole on the top that a gunner could pop up out.
Oh, okay, got
and
it.
that's a guy had a bow and arrow. Enemies had bow and arrows. He never used one, so I have questions. But decides to let the guy live, which ended up working out because he knew the password of how many honks to do for the gate to drop to get in the base.
Great.
So if you killed that guy and came over, they would recognize something was wrong right away, or you could just choose to just ditch the car when you got close to the complex and find some way to sneak in. But again, it's like those decisions that like it's not going to be too long before you find out like, oh crap, I made the wrong call, or oh, this is going to be a little more difficult than I had expected because I chose to do one thing over the other. So we sneak into this base, and then all of a sudden he recognizes right away like something's amiss, because it's kind of like The Division. He's like, there's little kids playing football and everyone's kind of nice and there's no like military training, and Aiden, your character's like, he's like, something's wrong. I think they painted the wrong picture of this settlement. And the settlement was cool too because it was like metal spires built on top of an already existing. It looked like a penitentiary, like a university or something. And so one thing that they talked about before they did the demo was a new Dark Age. So they're like, we kind of wanted you to get a vibe of like medieval times now, like the apocalypse, where like everyone's fortified, everyone's dug in, trust is gone. So it's really just these like big families or organizations that are just like, our resources, our stuff, back off.
We've lost Snapchat.
So right, so like
So much information is just gone.
Right, it's like right when we get close to this complex, seeing it on the horizon, it's immediately just like go away, go away, go away. Very threatening, very imposing. And so like you can kind of feel the fear when he's like gets out of the van and sneaks in. And so climbs up, gets in, stealths a little bit, and then eventually gets caught. And so now he's running through the base with these bad guys chasing him again. Just decapitation. And then finally makes it into the colonel, the commander, I don't remember his name, but the guy that runs this complex. And you threaten him and tell him, we got to turn the water back on because we need water. And he's like, well, let me talk to Frank. Oh, when you get to the base, the guy on the radio calls you and he says, Frank's dead. Frank died.
Damn
You're
it!
like,
Frank, no.
And so the guy
If you
doing
stay with Frank, can Frank live?
the guy doing the announcing was like, maybe we should stay with Frank. He didn't say definitively, but he was like, maybe that
No
was
way
maybe
I'm
that
leaving
was a
Frank.
bad call. And they very wisely set it up because they did a little introduction to these three characters beforehand, and Frank was like right in the front of like the image that they showed. So you're like, oh, Frank, cool. Like I'm gonna be doing a lot of missions for this guy, and then dead right in the demo. And so the music picks up. There's definitely a sense of distrust. You're like, oh no, he's gonna go on the warpath. They killed his buddy. And he gets to the general or the commander, and the guy's like, well, let me talk to Frank. What's the issue? Why are you killing all my people? Why did you sneak into my base? And you're like, Frank's dead. You killed him. And he's like, I killed. What are you talking? Did you see my men shoot him? And you're like, no. And he's like, well, then we got to figure out what the hell's going on, because I think somebody's lying to you. And then your buddy that was holding Frank when you left is like, he's lying to you. Kill him. And you're like, wait a minute. Like,
Double cross.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't trust you. And so, like, this was an instance where they made a decision I definitely would not have. If I was playing this, I'd be like, no, I trust this guy. I'm not going to act rashly, but in the interest of having a big, cool action finale, he's like, screw you, rah, and starts fighting everybody, turns on the water, which again was a decision, like, trust this guy or leave. And then after you fight him, it's like, do you actually want to turn these things on, or do you just
Lot
want
of
to escape?
choices.
And like,
Yeah.
and so we turn these things on. A big heavy comes out, got a big sledgehammer.
Ooh.
There's
Yeah,
like
I'm-
sparking,
Good. I want to know about this.
and they had actually a really cool movement. The guy would do this like, classic Souls combo where it's just one more attack than you think he's gonna do, and he had really cool evasion. Got a little bit of reaction from the crowd of like, oh, that was actually a pretty neat dodge, especially in first person. To see like this big hammer like go right over his head as he's sliding around. You have the grappling hook. So one movie that he did, he grappled the roof and then like swung into the guy,
Oh,
staggered
wow.
him, and yeah, it was just kind of slowly whittling away
Was
at this
it
guy.
all dodging? Was there any parrying or?
The guy had a hammer, so it was not
Yeah,
a lot,
yeah,
not a lot
yeah.
of that.
Harry and Hammer, Hubert.
And it was nice.
Parry
you
that
just
thing.
had like a little makeshift like blade.
or block it?
And then so you decide like gotta shut this water on, gotta screw these guys. We're almost officially at war with these people. So you shut the water on, or you turn the water on, and then that via cutscene removes the water from around that base. So now they transition into the next, basically like the end of the demo, and that not only takes out the water in that area, but takes out the water in a whole other district, which
Oh.
then opens up all those buildings now. So now people are moving into that district. They're going to utilize those spaces.
Interesting.
It's very enslaved, where like this whole area's been underwater, so it's very green. Like all of the buildings are
Sweet.
stained. You can like see the water line like right where it dropped, and they of course focus on like, which is a big thing for them, which you can change the world, really shape it the way that you want to. And it was just single player, but they mentioned there's up to 4-player co-op,
Yeah,
and it's
man.
got through the whole game, and it's guided by whoever the host is. So it's not only a matter of it's fun to play together and beat up zombies. Maybe I'm getting materials and money and
Is
experience
there like
to
a
level up my
voting on
character.
choices like Old Republic or something, or is it?
They didn't. That's a very good question. Yeah, they didn't get
Yeah.
into that. I would imagine the host just gets to
Sure.
gets to pick everything, because that would be a little weird. If
Jones.
you're coming into my world that I've already made these decisions prior, and then now you're affecting stuff.
Did you see any sweet loot?
No, the one bit was the first guy he stealth killed when we had gotten into the base had his weapon just kind of propped up against the railing, and so it was just that nice, like, oh, yoink, thanks.
Yeah.
Especially after all the crafting that I did in Dead Island and in Dying Light. It's just nice to be like, oh, thanks. It's lightning rod, like, yeah, I'll use that.
And the you were saying all the decapitations were those just like one hit kills, really weak.
Sometimes he
enemies?
got lucky, and then sometimes there was like, because he had the weapon that you had was also electrified, so you would like charge it and then do like a special attack. Cool. And then finally in the last bit of the cutscene, they do a little bit showing off the world, and then they have a shot where the guy who I would have trusted, I would have sided with him and questioned the guy that I thought was my friend. You can see that like he was right. Like there are people in your organization that are a little more militant than maybe you would like, and so it shows this like full on assault on this base. And so you see like all of the police force, basically all blue pads and blue armor, just rush this building, and they have a cutscene where you see this guy like up in his tower, just realizing like it's over. Like I like my whole settlement that I created. Like you can see
intense.
him like damn. Like it was that easy. I got taken out.
Good lord.
Dying Light 2 sounds high
And
stakes.
as the troops are running away, it pans down to the ground, and a zombie arm comes up and then turns to the side, and 3 like bones like whack, come out of the side.
Wolverine,
How do
dude.
you,
Dun, dun.
how do you
That
win
was
in
the
this
end.
game?
Yeah.
It seems like everything you do is just like consequence.
It's kind of the lesser of two evils, but I don't like. For me, I think they do enough at kind of representing like what your general attitude is. So like each picking one NPC dying over another, or picking like whether I want to just end the mission straight up right now or actually go into another one. When they talked about it last year, it seemed very clear of like you can be super like bring in the authority and like really lay down the law, which is great because it reduces crime and it makes some people feel more comfortable because there's more structure in this society. But like these guys can get a little out of hand sometimes, and you can't be there for every interaction. So there might be people who didn't do anything wrong getting mugged in the street by these cops who are just trying to be super pushy. Or you can just let everything be crazy, but then resources might go away quicker, and there's just no easy answer. But at the same time, I'm like, I think I'm probably going to go the authority route and just see how that plays out, because even just aesthetically, it's like it could be a question of like, I like that blue armor, like there's a lot of different qualities to pick, and it's fun when you go into your friends' worlds in co-op because you can be like, oh, let me jump into your world later, and then be like, whoa, like
Yeah.
what is this building? Or like, whoa,
Yeah.
all the water went away here.
Yeah,
What
that's
happened?
actually pretty cool. Yeah,
and
I definitely would look forward
Animal
to
Crossing style.
Again,
Come
yeah.
see my town.
Right. And again, major
depressing.
Animal Crossing vibes in Dying Light 2 today, no question. And again, like a lot of that is just, PR talk is just them being like, these changes, make a big deal. But the main thing that I noticed just from these decisions that you make, again, that thing with Frank, is that paid off before the mission was over. So there's just a lot of like go, make this decision right now in the moment.
Two quick questions. One, was any of the platforming like puzzle based? Did you have to climb up anywhere and kind of like, I'll jump there, and then I'll climb here, any stuff like that?
One of my favorite things about it, Breath of the Wild style, is all of your parkour is not necessarily the parkour, but the climbing is all stamina based. So there was there was one part where it like wasn't that tricky. It was just kind of just climbed up on this and then on this and this, but there were a bunch of zombies below him, and that meter was like, do it in the last jump. You're like, aha, and then finally made it. That's why last year he went up that tower that you saw from the trailers last year, and like, ooh, that got chills. Like I'm like, I imagine this guy's gonna make it through it. He's probably done this 500 times, but just you see that bar get into the red, and it's like, even if you feel somewhat comfortable, it adds that little extra bit of tension. But again, there were some parts where I'm like, I don't know if I would have seen that opportunity. There was one bit where when he was running around the base, when all the alarms went off and everyone was chasing him, he turned into a corner and saw like 3 people at the end of the hallway notice him, and he looked up and grappled, like Batman style, grappled the event and pulled it off, and then jumped up and climbed into the vent.
Wow. Okay.
And I was like, whoa, I didn't even, maybe they in an early tutorial mission they show that off, like keep an eye out for these things because they help with stealth.
Was the whole thing set during the day? Did we see any night?
And it was they tricked you right at the beginning because like you're in this nightclub and it's really smoky and dark, and she's this lady singing on stage and everyone's drinking, and then it's like, okay, let's do this thing, and you open up the door and like bright sunlight.
Jones, it's so exciting because everything you just said was daytime versus humans. There's still an entirely another side of this game, like night ops versus the zombies.
Yeah.
So I imagine the next time we see this game, they'll probably focus on that part.
Yeah. And while that moment where you fell through seemed kind of contrived because it was clearly like the direction they wanted to take the demo, I just imagine if there's like traps like that, if there's some platforms that you can't see, it's like a little weak, and you just think you're on top of the world, and you're like, oh, what's that? Whoa! And like they throw you into some crazy situation. Like even if you got the skills, I got a ton of weapon on me, I can generally evade. It's like, just spooky when you're in darkness. You just got the flashlight, and like I can see right in front of me, but I have no idea really where to go or like how to get out of here. And even though it was like a choreographed E3 demo, like there were a couple parts where I was like, this guy is screwed. Like, or I would probably panic in this situation. Like I don't know if I would be able to sneak out as expertly as that guy did.
Awesome.
You good?
And he stumbled once,
Well,
which I
wrapping
love,
it up.
which I love in a live
We're
demo.
like 10 minutes over time on it, so that's fine.
He stumbled once. There was one time he tried to do a cool thing, and the guy was like, oh, he got it. Okay. So I love seeing that in a demo where it's not 100% perfect scene.